Hey guys, Thomas the Silly Genie here, aka Mustached, here to finally review the movie Upgrade. So before I can even officially begin my review, I do want to give a quick shout out to one of my commenters, Tina Sell, who gave me some good critique, and that really went a long way. Unfortunately, uh, my work, my real work, since YouTube doesn't pay me, it's not my job. My real work has been stockpiling more days on me, so finding time to really flesh out reviews has only gotten harder. I know it's a terrible excuse, but there's really not much else I can do. I was able to, at least with this movie and probably upcoming movies, is to remain in the sort of summary type review where I just follow my notes and talk about the movie and once in a while talk about how good it was or how bad it was. So I'm going to apologize. I did say I was going to try to, improve as a content creator, but it has just gotten even harder to do so with just less time to really hone my craft in the reviewing aspect. So I do apologize on that behalf. So, anyways, back to the movie Upgrade. I actually did not know that this was, well, it says the producer from Get Out, Happy Death Day, and The Purge. So, I actually didn't know that. This movie definitely has a very different tone from all three of these movies right off the bat. I'm just gonna say that. But we see this little movie start off with this little voice thing that it starts to create these voice waves, and it doesn't really amount to anything, that little beginning there, but we do meet our main character, Gray, who's uh, some sort of car worker, and the world that this movie builds right off the bat, as we move along in their house, we see that it's very technologically advanced. Everything is all in the future. The house welcomes them in. Uh, the wife got home via this car that drove on its own. So already we are already getting a sense of what this world is, and that's pretty good. And it does it through just showing us, which is also again really good. One of the other highlights that I will say right off the bat is the pacing of this movie is insanely good. Even though it does follow some beats that are a bit more akin to a trope or even a cliche, again, I cannot deny that the pacing of this movie is absolutely excellent, as well as the acting. The main character who plays Gray here is a does a pretty good job, and again, just those little moments here and there really sell the idea of what's actually going on. Anyways, Ray wants to have his wife, tag along for work. Uh, so they go to this place where he's like offering to take her, and they both meet this guy named Aaron who seems a bit off. He seems like the way he interacts with people, he doesn't like actually interact with people all that much. And at first I thought it was like really bad acting, but they did say all that stuff, and I don't know, there was just something weird about it, but they get shown this little bug thing that he's been working on, which he calls STEM. So, after their little meet and greet, they get back in the car and they end up going in the highway. Uh, and the two of them start to like make out and stuff. And while they're doing that, because the car is doing its own thing, it starts to speed up, and they try to then stop it at some point, and eventually it flips over, and yeah, these guys arrive. This one, these several masked men come out, and they shoot Ash, the wife, or Ashley. I forgot which one it was, and then they knock Ray out. Uh, and at first, it's all like, well, why wouldn't they just kill Ray? Well, the movie does an attempt at explaining this, but it does come towards the end of the movie, so saying it now, I will also say that there will be spoilers, because I will be talking about the end of this movie. Uh, so yeah, there's that. So, the police arrive on the scene pretty quickly, but nonetheless, we do cut to Gray in the hospital, and again, it's just that pacing. It just goes boom right there. Um, and 3 months pass, and we see that his mother is taking care of him now, and he needs it. And how badly he was beaten, he now needs a wheelchair to essentially get around. He's now been paralyzed from the neck down. And again, the mother has to take care of him. And he does have an emotional breakdown. Again, akin back to talking about that really good acting. Having that pretty soft, quiet moment followed up by the emotional breakdown. I really appreciated that. We cut to this detective, Cortez, who wants to meet up with Gray and talk about the situation. Say, I'm going to try to help you, but you got to try to help me. And he's like, well, I really can't because of my condition. And we see that he was willing to overdose on his medicine, you know, and he ends up in the hospital, where we see that Aaron once again visits him, and he offers that chip we saw, STEM, as a solution. And once Aaron does his little, like, moment of talking, because Gray was not convinced, he was ready to just end it all. The last thing Aaron says manages to convince Gray that he should do this operation. I believe Aaron mentions the wife and what she would want. So again, he goes for the operation. And while it's going on, we see that Aaron is talking about it, how it's going to be difficult. But then, as soon as he wakes up, he's already starting to move his hands, and he's freaking out because it's pretty weird that would already be happening that fast. So he starts to be able to walk around too, and he's put to sign this little document to say that this is going to be between them. So there's that little detail. So he returns home. He looks at the files and he starts to look into the footage that was left behind for him. And then from out of nowhere, he starts to hear a voice. And we learn that this is STEM talking to him, and only he can hear it, this voice. So STEM says that after telling it to shut up for a brief moment, he tells him to look at the footage after telling him he can talk again. So he notices this guy with this tattoo. So they go to this place. And then they're looking around, snooping around for info, but the guy does eventually return home. So the tattoo guy sees him, that being Gray, and they fight over what's going on. And at first, Gray is struggling to fight this guy off. And then while this is going on, STEM says that if he gives STEM access, that Stem would fight this guy for him. So he does so, and then all of a sudden, Stem helps this guy, helps Gray kill the tattoo guy, essentially. So Stem mentions how it also recorded everything that Gray touched, which would allow him to wipe away any potential evidence. We cut to Cortez looking over the dead body. Really, again, not wasting really any time, just getting right into it. And they see that this body that was left behind has had its own implants, including some sort of gun arm thing that all of the bad guys apparently use. So she goes to see Gray because apparently he ended up on the suspect list. So again, she's trying to get him to like talk about what happened, why he was in the vicinity. But he gets a little bit more help from Stem to help him along this little thing. The little subtleties to always look at the person, not to look away. Telling him what to say as suggestions, but he takes the advice without really, wavering over or saying something else. So he gets some more info, I believe. I forgot how he ends up going to the bar, but he does. I believe Stem tells him something about the bar, and that's what leads him there. And this is one of the parts we see in the trailer, where he's like, he's sitting down in his little chair, and he asks the bar around him if anyone, messed with him or was a part of the whole attacking his wife bit. And one of the guys stands up, and Gray essentially like mocks this guy into like bringing him into the back, where he starts like stabbing Gray in these areas, and Stem had turned off the pain essentially, and then this guy eventually places it like behind his ear or something like that, because still from the neck up, that would still be mostly him in control, which would be where his pain would still be taking place. Nonetheless, Stem does take over and once again starts cutting this guy super bad. And the guy manages to reveal the next location. But Stem tells Gray that Aaron is going to shut Stem down, so he tells him to go to see this hacker. Then we cut to this guy named Fisk, who's the guy who's mainly responsible for the wife's murder. So Fisk is at the bar talking to the bartender briefly, and the bartender's not having any of it. So Fisk sneezes, and we get a little close-up, and we see that his little sneeze there has these little blades inside of it, and he sends them into the guy's nose, and I guess they just wreck him from the inside, or that's what's implied anyway. The hacker and Gray talk for a bit. It's, they do their little thing. But anyway, Fisk unfortunately arrives on the scene, able to get the information from the dead guy by hacking into his eye and seeing what he saw before he died. And this truck named Vessel arrives, and more of these guys just start coming as well. So they send up this whole team after Gray. And meanwhile, Gray is starting to see his wife temporarily, and he's like looking at it, and then seeing that it's not there anymore. So Fisk is able to catch up, And just in the nick of time, I will say this is more of a slash trope or cliche, is that Steam manages to wake up just in time to help Gray, just as Fisk is getting there. Like, he's literally in the same room by the time Steam wakes up. Like, that's how close they allowed it to get. So, Fisk gets, like, some more info. Um, Meanwhile, Gray, uh, he shoots his way through, with Stem helping him, guiding him along, all that good stuff. So this movie is very action oriented as well. Um, and seeing that this movie was from the same producers that did the movies above, it would imply that there was supposed to be an horror element. And I think there was, but I don't think it was the focus. But there is an element there. It's definitely a little bit like, a little bit creepy, on the creepy side, if you will. So, anyways, so Stem helps Gray to escape, etc., etc. And he killed the gun. He killed another guy somehow by making him use his own gun against him, and he eventually returns home. And he is walking, and his mother sees this and starts to ask what happened and gets all the info. So, Gray has this dream about his wife this time. Last time he thought he saw his wife, and the next time he actually had a dream about his wife. And this little detail does serve a very important purpose. It's not like this is just happening out of nowhere, but again, that will be saved for the end where the remaining spoilers will go. So Cortez decides to visit him again. And at this point, Gray no longer wants Stem around, and Stem turns off for the moment. And Cortez, you know, she's like following him, and she listened to the whole conversation. She was in the room with him, so I guess she planted a bug at some point. That bit was a bit unclear. Like, it didn't really show her do that, but I guess it's implied. And she sees or hears Cortez talking to, Gray talking to what appears to be nobody, but it's him talking to Stem, as Stem says that it no longer needs his permission to do anything, and that's what the hacker apparently did. So, Cortez follows Gray via police chase, and Gray is forced to take over. I guess apparently, this part was a bit bizarre to me, but apparently it couldn't hack the cars because apparently they weren't technological. They weren't technical enough for it, which I find odd. You would assume that all vehicles had some technical advancement, like even something as simple as a radio or something. I don't know. Nonetheless, Stem takes over this other car, this more futuristic car, and slams into Cortez's car, where she returns to the mother via walking or running back there to try to figure out what the heck is actually going on. So Gray makes his way back to Fisk, and Fisk talks about how he got this upgrade, how, what he did shooting Gray's wife was what led to him getting the upgrade in the first place, so he should be thanking him. So Gray tries to shoot this Fisk guy, and then they fight back. And then Gray distracts Fisk at some point, getting him into this emotional state, and that allows, Stem to find an advantage and then kill Fisk. But Gray says his mission isn't over yet, as apparently someone else got this guy this mission to do this in the first place. And this is where the big spoilers start taking place, so I'm just going to mention that now. So he returns to Aaron's place, and Gray shoots up a bullet and sees that Aaron's all like, freaking out. But then Cortez ended up getting there before him somehow, and has a gun behind Gray. And I do realize now that I wrote that in my notes just as that, but I do realize now how odd that does sound. So I have to assume she must have found some other car or something. But anyways, she starts to prep to arrest him, and again, Stem takes over and starts to attack Cortez. So Gray's trying to fight Stem now, trying to stab himself, trying to do whatever it takes to actually try to give the cop the edge, Cortez the edge in this little fight that they're having. Nonetheless, we see that Stem apparently was able to take over Aaron, or give Aaron suggestions, and then Stem stabs Aaron in the head. So apparently, Stem was the one that the other guys were officially working for, and that it was the one that found Gray and took over his body on purpose. So, Gray tries to shoot himself, just absolutely done with it. And then it does this sudden cut to him waking up in the hospital, unable to move again. And at first, I thought it was doing this, just absolute, bullshit, oh, it was just a dream or something. And in a way, it kind of does that, but in this particular case, the way it handles it, I do think that it was actually really well handled instead of it just being a terrible cliche. So yes, he does see his wife though, but we cut back to the actual situation that's happening, and we see that his eyes, Gray's eyes, are now all blacked out, or, blacked out mainly, and Stem has now fully taken over his body, and he does kill Cortez. And he mentions that, or before killing Cortez, but he does do it, that he allowed Gray to live in this alternate. Yes, so he sees his wife, and again, yeah, so he sees his wife, and then, we see that it's sort of that dream state, and that his eyes had become officially black. Stem took over, and I mentioned how he killed Cortez, and before he did that, he says that he allowed Gray to live in the back of the mind in this little dream world. And that is actually the end of the movie Upgrade. And yeah, the end of the movie kind of gets this little horror aspect, or this, creepy aspect in the way of, body control, sort of what is actually going on. And apparently, we learn near the end of the movie that the STEM program, this little bug thing, set everything up in motion from the very beginning. So it's implied that the actual bug itself was built, you know, preamble the movie, but was just shown off. There were some little moments that I do feel are a little bit unanswered, like what happened with the mother, what happened with the hacker, little things, little details like that I don't know if that's going to lead to a sequel. The hacker did mention something about a war or a potential battle or something. So again, I'm not sure if that was put there to imply that there would be a sequel, but it does kind of seem like there's potential there. Again, I have to reiterate that the pacing of this movie is very good, and so is the acting, especially on the main character here that we follow. Uh, and, even if it's been done before, I do find it interesting throughout the movie that, he's constantly trying to go like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, and then Sam's like, well, I could do it for you, just kind of nudging him along, kind of like, yeah, you're kind of in this terrible, shitty scenario right now, so you might want to consider it. Um, and the visions of the wife. At first, it was like a actual vision, then it was like a dream. Both of those moments were very clearly STEM, making him visually see this twice over to try to, take over his mind officially. Um, so there was a lot of, things that were there shown but not told to us. And I really appreciate that, that you know, it treated us, the audience, that we were smart enough to figure something like that out. It didn't say, oh, STEM didn't like to explain, like, oh, I made the wife appear other times to take over or something like that. So, you know, again, just the little moments like that really help it a long way. The fighting sequences are interesting. The camera work was a little, kind of tries to follow what the guy is doing as he's going up and swinging up and down. But it is interesting. I really did enjoy this movie. And again, even with its faults, I do still think it's a pretty solid movie. I actually would give it an 8 out of 10. I really did enjoy it. And that is my review of Upgrade. And if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out that link in the description. I'll head you over to my Patreon page, and any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.